Hi everybody, welcome to Amy Lieu Presents. My next guest is an amazingly talented singer and songwriter. Her name is Priska.
What's up? Thanks for having me here, Amy.
So you've been playing the piano since you were 4 years old.
Since I was 4, I remember plunking down those keys, and actually my piano teacher hated me because I would be like, I need to go take a nap in the middle of a lesson. And I would just go over. She would find me literally just like conked out on my bed.
But hey, here you are today.
Here I am.
So the name Priska, it's really interesting and it's unique. Tell us about that name.
Yeah, well, my full name is Priscilla, and Priska was a nickname that my mom gave me. So she's been calling me that since I was a kid. And you know, when I came time to kind of try to find a name that suited my musical pursuits, nothing was more personal and more honest feeling than, you know, what your mom's been calling you since you were a kid.
Your music is really expressive and emotional. For those of the people out there that haven't heard it, what would you describe it as?
Well, it's kind of like, you know, Norah Jones meets Sarah Bareilles. There's a couple of, you know, soul and jazz components, but for the most part, it's just very, to buy the book, you know, singer-songwriter material. I love writing about, you know, lost love, just temporality of life, and just anything that has to do with the human condition. That's kind of what I'm all about.
Speaking of weaknesses, bullying is actually a factor that makes people feel bad and weak too. And I know that you struggled with that as an adolescent. So can you tell us a little bit about how that also inspired your music?
I would love to tell you that, Amy.
Okay.
So, you know, kids can be really harsh, and I grew up, you know, just kind of a very like dreamy, like spacey kind of kid, like just in my own like little world. And I think my parents really wanted more for me and to kind of push me academically and intellectually. And so, you know, they pushed me to skip a grade. And so I skipped the 4th grade, which is, you know, it's a pretty big grade to skip. So what happened was I think a lot of kids just did not take well to me and felt like, you know, I didn't belong there. And it was really challenging because, you know, here you're dealing with a huge intellectual leap and a huge cultural shift. And at the same time, you're, you know, really trying to make friends at a new school, you're really trying to make connections, and you're unable to because people are telling you don't belong, you're not good enough, you're really weird, you should stay out of this. You know, this was kind of when it came to a head. I was in 7th grade and I had this surgery on my knee and I was on crutches, and I, you know, carried all my books on my backpack, in my backpack, on my back, with crutches, going up and down like these sets of stairs that were kind of like metallic and a bit slippery when wet, right? And I was going up the stairs, and one day I fell backwards and slid down the back, and my crutches went one way and the other, and I was like a turtle on my back because of the huge backpack, unable to roll to one side or the other to grab my crutches. And I was laying there until the bell rang and kids came out of class and saw me there, and it was just like this moment where I was like, I feel so alone. I feel so disconnected, you know, and I feel so helpless. And, you know, my mom was really perturbed by the situation and actually went to the principal's office, and so I got assigned the cutest boy in school to help me carry my books. So guys, it is okay. Everything's gonna be all right.
There's a silver lining in everything.
Exactly.
How did that affect your music, you'd say?
I think bullying did play a part, just because when you're externally bullied, what happens is less so what happens in the movies where you fight back and you rebel. And for me at least, I internalized everything and I went inward. And when you do that, you know, the human mind is a really interesting place. And when you spend time just with your thoughts and yourself, and you commit yourself to kind of exploring that, it can be a really beautiful creative time, even if it is wrought by pain.
What are the other things that you'd say that affects you emotionally and also inspires your writing?
I think, you know, I grew up, my father's a pastor, and so I grew up with a very religious upbringing, and that kept me really, really, really sheltered. But what it also invited was just like this idea of self-introspection, of kind of like speaking about your emotions in a very like open way. Like, you know, if you've ever been in a small group, I'm not highly religious anymore, but if you've ever been in a small group, in any type of like religious setting, you're asked to speak about your thoughts and your emotions and your process and your life story. It helps you start to slot that into perspective, and it helps you to really learn how to storytell with kind of an internal focus.
Mm-hmm. Now that you have a full-blown music career, what do your parents think? You know, your dad's a pastor and your mom named you Priska.
Yeah.
What are their thoughts?
So I think my parents were really freaked out that they had 3 kids. I have 2 little sisters, but they had 3 kids that were relatively artsy. My younger sister's a photographer, and the youngest one, she's also very like crafty, and we're all a little bit out of the box, you know? And so my dad, before he was a pastor, he was a computer engineer, and then my mom was a banker. She's like an auditor, and we always make fun of her because she can spot any problem that you've ever made. Like any mistake you've ever made, she'll spot it, like immediately, you know? And so I think that they were just like, oh shit, what do we do with these creative kids? Like, you know, either we can math the hell out of them, or—
Did you say math?
Yeah, math the hell out of them, or, which they did, you know, or we can try and see how to cultivate it. And I think they tried to balance it really well. For example, like we did Kumon, but we also did art lessons. And, you know, we did Chinese school, but we also did like film workshops. Seeing that now and realizing the priority she gave and lended to having her kids be motivated by art and to really express themselves in that way, I feel super blessed by it. Hashtag blessed, hashtag like prayer hands, you know? So.
Would you say that as an independent Asian American artist, it's challenging, it's advantageous? What are the pros and cons, you'd say?
Well, I think just as an independent artist in general, I think it is hard to do anything if you don't feel like you have a rubric. A lot of it is self-motivation, and a lot of it is just recognizing that you have something to say and that your voice matters. Like in the large schematics of things, if you don't share your story, humanity is like poorer for it. And I feel like that about every single person. And so I think that's really difficult as an independent artist when you're alone in your room and it's boring. You know, there's nothing to Snapchat, there's nothing to Instagram. It's literally boring. You almost have to have like an obsessive quality about you, you know? This is important enough to push through the boringness and the difficulty and the like lack of a direct, you know, success measure.
We're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing a few minutes with us.
Oh my gosh.
We had a great time. Thanks so much for watching Amy Lieu Presents. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Priska. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see and leave it in the comments who you want to see next time.